Hello, I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and in this episode, I want to introduce to you a term that I recently learned, and I think it's worth discussing. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about it. And that term is ethical fading, okay? Now, before I fully get into it, what it means and why it's significant and why and how I'm thinking about it, I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. That way you get all the various episodes and lessons that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you just did, and truly appreciate you if you already were. It means a lot to me. So ethical fading. Let me read the definition for you. Ethical fading occurs when the ethical aspects of a decision disappear from view. This happens when people focus heavily on some other aspects of a decision, such as profitability or winning. People tend to see what they are looking for, and they are not looking for an ethical issue that they might miss altogether. So let me give you a prime example that actually might happen in your day-to-day. It certainly does for me. So timesheets, right? I've had jobs where there's timesheets and we have to record, because, that's how we get paid. And so with these timesheets, what's funny to me oftentimes is I've gotten asked to fill them out in advance. So let's say, the end pay period ends on a Friday. Well, we're asked, by Wednesday, before that Friday, fill out the entire timesheet. So in essence, you're trying to predict for Thursday and Friday of what you worked. Now, all this to say that they're not really, this automatically negates the timesheet, because what they're ultimately looking for in that sense is like, hey, we just need a paper trail to show that there's a status quo and make everything good. Right? Okay, perhaps not a big deal, fine. But what about when it comes to car safety? Okay, we test out a couple of the cars initially, we make sure it's good, up to snuff. And then, as cars get manufactured, we'll kind of just quickly look at them and check them off of like they've been inspected. And then something goes wrong. And, that's how a lot of these kind of recalls happen. And all of a sudden it's like, well, shit, how is it possible that they went off the assembly line and all the paperwork checks out like they were supposed to be good, but in actuality, they're not. That's ethical fading. And you can take it into small examples, or you can take it to big examples. Now I'm going to focus on, the big examples obviously dominate our life, but we must start to look at it from an individualized perspective, because that's how we move the bar of standards up. Okay, so we have to hold people accountable. If they're asking us to do something that is, unethical, we have to say something. And it can be hard to do it on an individual level. So to that effect, that's, having more people to go in with you and to be able to back you up, obviously is a benefit. Not always possible, but if you can, try that. Other times it might fall on you to be the only one to be ethical. And here's a real simple way to kind of do it. Let's say this is like, I'm drawing an example because this to me was introduced from Simon Sinek's podcast, A Bit of Optimism, which I really highly recommend. And he was given this example where he went to see a friend's Broadway or play, right? It wasn't a Broadway play, but it was a play. And afterwards, someone asked him, what did you think? And be honest. And it wasn't the best play. So how do you be honest in that moment? And, a simple way in that sense is to say, I enjoyed being here and watching you perform. Because as long as that's a truthful answer, then it works. Now, of course, you might be pressed, well, how do you think I did, and so forth. That becomes a separate entirely question. And you might have to kind of figure that out. But, part of that is also maybe giving yourself, as Simon says, giving your space a little bit in between because in that moment after somebody, finishes a play, they're on this adrenaline high, they might not be ready to receive if there are notes. And so it's kind of creating a separation and distance, and then maybe the next day being like, okay, hey, I know you wanted my thoughts on your play, and then they might be in a much better place to receive it. So it's not to say that you have to be dishonest or, kind of shifting. You can, as Kim Scott often talks, radical candor. And radical candor really is about being direct and being empathetic. And I think that's the way we need to communicate in order to combat ethical fading, And so, as I mentioned at the top, I am not an expert on ethical fading and things like that, but I think it is something we really should consider because essentially that's what deteriorates society, right? It's what, it's when we're willing to cut corners in various places, then we all suffer the cost, ultimately, right? Maybe not in the short term, but ultimately. And so what I would like you to do, and what I would appreciate, is if you could think about this idea of ethical fading and think of examples in your own life, whether you've done them yourself or not. It's not required, but I would almost invite you to look at yourself of moments where, there's been ethical fading, where kind of like everyone else, it's like, oh, everyone else is doing this thing, so, it's cool if I do it too, right? Or something like that. And let me know what examples you come up with in the comment section or hit me up on social media. Because that ultimately, when I introduce the various ideas that I do in the episodes that I post, it's, yes, to get this thing in your mind, but it's ultimately to create action, because thinking about these things is all well and good, but it means nothing without action. And so by giving you this task of thinking about it, but then thinking about it and seeing the examples, that can enact a change in you. And by recognizing these things in your life, we can do better and be better. So that's what I would love truly for you, because guess what? You might come up with stuff that I might be doing that I've never considered. And that would open my eyes and make me do better and be better. So, you can do that in the comment section or hit me up on social media at Svitek. Now that's the lesson I have for you. Thank you for watching. Feel free to share this with somebody in your life who you think may benefit. I appreciate you and hope to see you next time.